Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Storytime with BDD. I'm your host, BDD, aka Brooklyn Dad. Folks, welcome and thank you for hanging in there with me. We had a little uh, late start with some technical difficulties. Let me just make sure you guys can hear me. Meredith Powell saying I need to bring back the wigs. You crazy. You crazy. Can you guys hear me okay? Because my audio uh was messed up. Let's see. Hi there, BDD. Let's see. We got Queen of the South here. Heard. Mama AG says heard. Glad to hear it. Okay, good. Let me just do a quick hello to let's see. Whoops. Uh Zelda is there at the top, followed by Meredith Powell. The Trump Reaper is here. Fox Hill Dreams. Um you guys are going back and forth here. We have Officer Doofus here. Gonna remove Officer Doofus from the chat because who needs that? Valerie G is here. All right. I'm just going to go ahead and jump into because we do have a few things to cover today. But first, let's do a quick recap in what I call stories of the day.
Stories of the day.
All right, stories of the day. And at the top here, we have President Biden defiantly saying, I'm staying in the race. That's right. He is staying in the race. He said it. This has been a long goddamn week, let me say. And I'm sure you know what is coming. I have a mouthful to unload. But first, let's get through this other shit. Yeah, okay. He made a speech today in Wisconsin, which for some was confirmation what we already knew. President Biden is President Biden. Yeah, he might have a few gaffes here and there. He might stutter. He might mix up his words, but who the hell doesn't occasionally? Those of us who are 30, 40, 50, 60 years old, all of us, none of us are able to keep thousands upon thousands of critical data at the top of our head and be able to articulate them, beautifully and perfectly at will all the time, every day of the goddamn week. So give the guy a freaking break. New York Times. The New York Times is a piece of shit rag that that has been piling on President Biden and completely ignoring his opponent. You would think that the highly regarded New York Times would look at his opponent and suggest, that maybe the guy with 34 felonies should leave the race. But the sitting president who had a bad debate, come on now. Come on. That's some bullshit. And now, what is being seen as a very, very high stakes interview, President Biden will be interviewed by none other than George Stephanopoulos. And if you are applauding, if you are excited about this, well, you don't know who George Stephanopoulos is because, he is a sharp interviewer. He doesn't take any shorts. He doesn't give any shorts. He doesn't. And it doesn't matter whether you are a Republican or a Democrat. If you are bullshitting, he will call you out on it. So this is kind of a high stakes, do or die interview for President Biden tonight. And if this is your first time here at the Storytime with the BDD, then make sure you hit the like button and the subscribe button. But first, hit the like button, then subscribe, or you can do it the other way around. It really doesn't matter to me either way. Scott says, George, best be fair, damn it. I think George is fair, but first and foremost, George is a highly respected journalist, and he doesn't take that lightly, I believe. So if it's not a slam dunk that President Biden will have a terrific interview, whatever that metric looks like, you know, um, remains to be seen. But yeah, one thing is for sure, that if President Biden gets through this interview relatively unscathed politically, and not only unscathed, but you know, uh, supporting his case to continue forward as the nominee, the presidential nominee for the Democratic Party, um, this interview, I think, uh, should put some fears to rest and should answer a lot of questions. So the Defiant podcast, as originally thought, and as I promoted last week, I was saying that I was going to be interviewing none other than Representative Jasmine Crockett from Texas. That did not happen. There were some scheduling conflicts. So we have tentatively rescheduled for the week of July 22nd. So that's like 2 weeks from today ish. So I will keep you guys posted. I got fingers crossed. She is a fantastic congresswoman, and I've seen her in interviews too. I believe she'll be a fantastic interviewee. So stay tuned for that. I'm gonna rocket through these my usual reviews of movies and TV shows. This is just movies this week, and we have the long-awaited sequel. The last time Beverly Hills Cop was in the movies was in the 90s, so this is like 20 years later. Beverly Hills Cop 4, aka Beverly Hills Cop Axel F. Axel F for Axel Foley. And yeah, Eddie Murphy is back, and I think he was on top of his game. I don't think it was a terrific movie. I give it an 8, and for me, 8 is good. It's good. It's not great, but it's good. Pretty good is anything over 8.5. It's pretty good. Anything over 9 is great. So that's how you know what my grading scale is. So not only was Eddie Murphy back, but Billy, aka this is Judge Reinhold, and Taggart. I don't know what the name of that actor is who plays Taggart, the older guy, but they're back, and everybody kind of, when you look at it, everybody got older. That's what life is. If you're living, you're getting older. Um, Same that thing that applies to President Biden also applies to Eddie Murphy, although the signs of aging are clearly not as evident on Eddie Murphy as they are on Billy and Taggart. Taggart especially, he's had a rough go of it. But I guess the comic timing is there. And as you can see there, the main actress Paul Reiser is there. The years I think have been relatively kind to him. I don't know the name of that Russian dude who calls Axel Foley Axwell. But he was very good. He was good. He was there. Eddie Murphy also has a daughter in this, and his his partner is Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Uh, Kevin Bacon is in this. So it was pretty good. It's good, not pretty good, but good. Um, and you can check it out. It's on Netflix. So if you have Netflix, check it out. You might as well. Godzilla X or Times Kong, The New Empire, that is available on HBO. Usually, this is a movie that I would have gone to the theater to see, but the pandemic kind of changed that whole dynamic for me. And then I learned that, well, if I realize that these things are going to be on one of the streaming channels like HBO or Amazon or whatever, I can wait, unless it's like Marvel. Marvel movies, I'm in the theater to see. The other ones, I don't know. I don't know if I want to plunk down movie and movie money. Movie money is not just the price of the ticket, but also the price of the snacks and all that. So I don't know if I want to plunk down that movie money and be disappointed, possibly too. So, so I started watching this. This one. I haven't gotten to the part yet where King Kong gets like his own infinity glove, but it looks good so far. It's a good looking flick. It's got all the special effects you expect to see. I'll let you know what I think when I see it. This is an incomplete. I can't give this a rating yet, but it's Godzilla. He's going to smash things, and King Kong is going to smash things, and other monsters are going to smash things. They're going to smash things. That's what you want to see. Just Godzilla get Wolverine hands. I don't know, Meredith. All right, let's jump into our news for today. The news is that another jobs report came out. And yet again, the Biden administration has tacked on another 206,000 jobs ahead of expectations. This is good. It looks good for the economy. The economy, once again, is doing well. Still, there are people who are, rightly complaining about the price of gas and the price of groceries. And all I can say is, look to your Republican representatives, Congress people, and ask them why they blocked price gouging bill when it was in front of them. Why do they block that? A price gouging bill literally says we're going to go after companies that are price gouging, that are jacking up the price unnecessarily, that has nothing to do with them controlling their costs or whatever. It has nothing to do with any of that shit. All it has to do with is greed. So ask your Republican representatives why they would not approve a price gouging bill. Anyway, jobs are up. Also, the unemployment rate is up. And this is interesting because for the past 40 plus months, 42 months, I think, the unemployment rate has been either at or below 4%. Why is that important? Because strangely enough, the Jerome Powell, the guy in charge of the interest rates, is not interested in lowering interest rates until more people lose their jobs. Go figure that. That's that kind of fucked up logic that rules this country and this economy. But yeah, so when more people are unemployed, that's when they'll say, okay, now we'll bring down interest rates. They don't want to overheat the economy, I guess is the thing. Zelda, my friend, thank you again so much for your support of the story time with BDD. Thank you for your generosity. I appreciate your help. Thank you. Sorry, you guys. I'm just reading comments here. Sports fan says the so-called progressives in the House are coming together to call President Biden to drop out. Can stand them. Guess you meant to say can't stand them. But yeah, I agree with you. We're going to get to that in a little bit. But for now, okay. One bit of good news this week to sprinkle in with the rest of them. This jackass, this sloppy Steve scumbag jackass, is now in prison. So there's that. That's good. And now for the bad news. The Supreme Court this week. This week, the Supreme Court ruled that president is a king, does have some limited uh, immunity, right? And what does that limited immunity mean? It depends who's in the White House. It depends who's in Congress. That's it. That's it. Who has enough votes to keep this motherfucker from answering for his crimes? Because you know what, folks? We, in the 255 years that we have been a democracy, this issue has never come up. It's never come up whether or not a president can be prosecuted for committing crimes. Why? Because most presidents, I would say all presidents, with the exception of one, maybe also that other guy, Nixon, were not concerned with committing crimes. They were concerned with helping the American people. You know what? Even that jackass, George W. Bush, who lied us into a war with Iraq, even nobody even thought twice about prosecuting him. And, there's like a lot of people who died as a result of that war that was bullshit, right? So if he's already got some semblance of protection for official acts, then everybody does. Then you didn't need to go this extra step of granting him, excuse me, granting special immunity for official acts. Because now we're looking at what are official acts? What are these acts that who determines the officialness of these acts? Is it the Supreme Court? Is it the guy who committed these so-called official acts, but they're really crimes? Is it his cohorts in Congress? Who's determining this? It's bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. So, it does help Donald Trump possibly with some of his cases. It absolutely does. It seems like it's kind of helping him with sentencing for the New York City election interference case in which he paid Stormy Daniels hush money in order to cover up his activities and all that nonsense. So Judge Merchan has put off sentencing until September, giving Trump's attorneys time to figure out how this immunity thing can help him. So, really, really kind of upset me to see that, to see Judge Merchan. I mean, he's a judge, and so perfect example of how a judge is supposed to rule. Okay, Donald Trump has spent a lot of energy painting Judge Merchan as a liberal, saying, "Oh, he donated to liberals, and his daughter is a liberal," and So, if you went along with that narrative, you would believe that Judge Merchan is a liberal, and not only is he a liberal, Trump wants you to believe that he is a corrupt judge. He is ruling against Donald Trump, but all we've seen since the beginning of this case is Judge Merchan bending over backwards to accommodate Donald Trump in this legal process. So, to me, it looks like Judge Merchan is, due diligence. He's just making sure that he cannot be accused of having a bias against Donald Trump, and maybe that was the point all along. That was Donald Trump's point, his strategy, if you can call anything Donald Trump does as a strategy, but he's kind of working the refs. The more you complain that you're being treated unfairly, you create the impression, you create the image that someone's treating you unfairly, and so now people are scrutinizing that person that you are accusing of treating you unfairly. So now Judge Merchan, is going above and beyond, and that above and beyond is helping Donald Trump out on the clock that he's trying to run out. Let's talk about Project 2025, which, for all intents and purposes, is Donald Trump's plan to reshape the government as we know it, to basically tear everything down and rebuild it with the Donald Trump brand on it. And when I say with the Donald Trump brand, they want to remove thousands upon thousands of civil servants and only appoint new replacements as long as they swear an oath of loyalty to Donald Trump. And how bad is this plan, this Project 2025? It's so bad that Donald Trump today has come out against it on Truth Social, claiming he doesn't know. He knows nothing. I know nothing about Project 2025. I have no idea who's behind it. I disagree with some of the things they're saying, and some of the things they're saying are absolutely ridiculous and abysmal. Someone just told me that abysmal is a word. I believe it. It's a pretty good word. I'm not sure what it means, but it is abysmal. Anything they do, I wish them luck, but I have nothing to do with them. Despite the fact that most of the people involved in putting together Project 2025 are former Trump staff from his time in the White House, people that he appointed. Yeah. Scott says he can't spell abysmal. I'm sure somebody helped him with the spelling for that. Trump's Project 2025 include a national abortion ban, which, it's weird because he's on the record for saying both, for saying that he wants to leave it to the states, but also that he would sign a national abortion ban if it came across his desk. So, depending on what side of the political spectrum you're standing on, depending on if you believe you can believe anything that comes out of the mouths of Republicans, because, one minute they're saying, oh, Roe versus Wade, that's settled law. Yeah, no, if you happen to be a conservative judge, applying for the job of Supreme Court justice, and somebody asks you, what do you think about Roe v. Wade? And your answer is, it's settled law. I wouldn't, no need to bother with that at all. And then when it's in front of you, you're singing a different tune. For years, people thought that nobody had to even worry about codifying Roe v. Wade because it was settled law. Who was going to mess with it? The Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court, as we saw, is also messing with, federal agencies' ability to, interpret rules and laws that keep our water clean and our air clean, and and food safe, and drugs and pharmaceutical drugs safe. The Supreme Court is also saying, if you're homeless, well, you're shit out of luck. You can be fined and thrown in jail for being homeless or being unable to pay the fine. So you can't believe anything coming out of Republicans' mouths right now, including Trump's denial of having anything to do with Project 2025. But the fact that he is denying it means we are over the target, means that we have started to talk about it enough to where he's kind of nervous that he's being pasted with this thing that looks like a fascist manifesto. So watch out. And so here we are, getting ready to talk about the debate last week, which everybody knows the debate was pretty much well below all of our expectations. It was an unmitigated disaster. It was bad. Did not look good at all. Um, but if you put everything into perspective, you look at President Biden's body of work, you look at his performances before, you look at everything that he's done. You don't just judge him on one 90-minute performance. And by the way, throughout that 90-minute performance, he did appear to improve as it went along. Maybe not as sharply as he needed to improve, but whatever. It is what it is. Sometimes you just have an off night. Everybody's had an off night. Let's look at guys like Aaron Judge, for instance. I'm going to use Aaron Judge, and I'm sorry if you're not a sports fan, but Aaron Judge is a big slugger for the New York Yankees, who is currently leading the league in home runs, and he's a beast. He's phenomenal. Um, he's 6'7" or 6'8", and when he steps up to the plate, he creates fear in every opposing team that faces him. But that's not to say that he doesn't hit a home run every time he gets up to bat. In fact, sometimes he strikes out. In fact, guys like that, they tend to strike out quite a bit. Can you, if he goes out and strikes out every at bat in a game, are you going to say, you know what? This one game you struck out 5 times, you're 0 for 5. We're going to send you to the minor leagues. We're going to trade you away to some other team. Hell no. That's our guy. We're going to stick with him. It's just how it is, But the Democratic Party, for some reason, we love to shoot our own. We have that circular firing squad. Remember Al Franken? Al Franken? Yeah, I like the fact that whenever we start targeting our own side for small offenses, I'm not talking about like a Bob Menendez, for instance, right? Bob Menendez, it's his second time running afoul of the law, and the guy had gold bars and suits that hold that hold stacks of money in them. Nah, that dude is out to snacks. I'm talking about Al Franken, who took an ill-advised photograph when he was a comedian. And frankly, when he took that photograph, a lot of people were doing things that were ill-advised. A lot. I think there should be some kind of statute of limitations on things that happened before everybody was embracing what's considered politically correct or woke right now. I'm not calling it woke because how woke has kind of been weaponized to be ridiculous. But woke is good. Woke means you give a shit about how your fellow human being is treated. Um, but anyway, I digress. Al Franken was kind of kicked to the curb way too quick. And that's what our side does. We kick people to the curb way too motherfucking quick. Now, I want to focus for a minute on, since I was mentioning teams, like the Yankee, right? The Yankees, for instance, Aaron Judge is just one player on that team. right? One player alone does not do it. Whether it's the captain of the team or the shortstop or whatever, everybody has a role to play, right? And the same goes for, presidents, for administrations, for parties, right? Sure, Joe Biden is our president, but he's got a team, right? And I'm not just talking about his vice president Kamala Harris and his chief of staff, whose name actually is weird. I can't even think of his chief of staff. He's kind of under the radar, but he's got his press secretary Karine Jean Pierre, and goes all down the list. Everybody who's in his cabinet, et cetera, et cetera. But I have an issue with President Biden's team, and it's not just recently. I'm saying it's going back to, well, actually, let's talk about recently, okay? Because it was a few days ago, President Biden gave a speech, and I was looking at it. I was watching on the TV set, and I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. What the? Because usually when President Biden gives a speech, I like to stand in front of my TV with my phone and record, in case he says something, spicy or, whatever. And I was watching the speech for like 3 seconds, and I was like, is something wrong with my TV? What the fuck? What is happening? What is happening with my TV right now? And the tint of President Biden's complexion was way off. And no, I did not have to adjust my dial, right? Somebody on this man's team let this man go in front of national cameras on national TV with his face looking like that. And I was like, God damn it. Who is on this man's team? Who let him walk in front of the public looking like that? And you know what? You're probably thinking to yourself, oh, well, Joe Biden should have said something. You know what? He's got a trillion different things running around in his brain at that time. That is the job of whoever's job that is. Everybody has a job. Somebody's job is to make sure he doesn't have shit on his shoes. Somebody's job is to make sure that his watch is synchronized. He's got people to do things, right? And whoever's job it was to check that nobody's putting clown makeup on his face failed. That's one, right? And so, of course, I saw it, and I immediately I took a picture, and I ran over to wifey, and I was like, what? I was like, what's wrong with this? And she's like, well, I don't know. Aside from the fact that he looked really orange, I was like, yeah, that's it. That's it. She looked at it without me saying anything. I just said, what's wrong with this? Orange, right? Anybody could see it. Blink of an eye. And my issue was, that's going to get memed. And sure enough, within minutes, Orange Man was trending. And I knew it. I knew it was going to trend. And I was talking to my friends online. I was like, this is fucked up. This is fucked up, because look at the before on the left and the after on the right. Come on, man. So the after on the right, mind you, to be fair, they photoshopped that. They pumped up the saturation. How do I know? Because I've done that with Trump. Guilty. I've done that with Trump, pumped up his orange occasionally. But that's ridiculous. Come on, guys. That's unnecessary, for crying out loud. And then I forget, it was yesterday or the day before, I saw articles saying that Biden suggests to allies he might limit evening events to get more sleep. In what world is that helpful? What world? I'm all for getting more sleep. I personally am guilty of not getting enough sleep on a regular basis throughout the week. I probably average between 4 and 5 hours of sleep per day. I should be getting more from my blood pressure and all that, but I don't. It is what it is. But right now, is that something that we need to, grandpa's not having any events after 8 p.m.? Is that what we need to project? I don't think so. So, whoever is on the messaging team, you're fucking up. You are fucking up. I'm telling you this. Figure out a way to, spin that differently. Come on. Come the fuck on. And so let's go back, a year or two ago. I forget when this happened, but if you look in the lower left corner, there's a sandbag there. What genius left a sandbag in the path of the president to fall over? You know, uh, I in school, when I was in elementary school and then middle school and high school, there were times when I had to go on stage and read a little blurb or something. And, whenever I knew I had to go on stage, I was always dressed up, wearing a suit and a tie, and I had my good shoes on. And everybody knows the good shoes almost never have traction. They're always slippery on the bottom. And when you're in the auditorium, school auditorium, um that wood surface on the stage is polished to like infinity. So, my fear was always slipping and falling. When I was young, when I was in elementary school, middle school, high school, always worried that I was going to slip and fall. So, shouldn't the priority be for your boss to not fucking fall over a goddamn bag of sand that is below his line of sight? Come on, get your heads in the game, Biden team. You're fucking pissing me the fuck off and the rest of us. It's not President Biden's job to do all of those things, right? It's not. And the Democratic Party needs to coalesce behind our guy. Period. President Biden has been in public service for decades, right? He's paid his goddamn dues. And right now, he is the only guy standing between us and the loss of our democracy to a rapist, insurrectionist, wannabe dictator. Right now, look at the polls. Look at those bullshit ass polls that show President Biden right now is the top guy. He does the best against Donald Trump. After him, it's Kamala Harris, and after her, I forget who is after her. It might be Pete Buttigieg, or it might be Gavin Newsom, whatever. It's irrelevant because, frankly, if it's not President Biden going up against Trump, it should be Vice President Harris. It should be. But above anything else, it should be President Biden's call to do so. And he shouldn't be subjected to all this fucking bullshit pressure, everybody, circling with their arrows and guns pointed at President Biden. Back up off the man. Give him the space and the dignity to make a decision. And if he says he's not, if he says he's running, that's it. That's it. What are you guys even doing? You are lowering the confidence of the voters. At this point, I don't, at this point, until President Biden says otherwise, he is our nominee. He is the guy that I'm listening to. He is the guy that I'm supporting. That's it. I don't give a shit what any stupid ass polls say, because you know what? Frankly, a lot of those polls are skewed based on um, what they want people to believe, right? Whoever's paying for the polls, that determines what poll results we get to see. In fact, a lot of the shit you see on the news is meant to affect you, is meant to manipulate you in some kind of way. You ever notice how every once in a while your local news station will start hitting, you get hit with a barrage of news about fires, for instance, right? There's a fire over here, it's a fire over there, there's a fire, there's a fire, there's a fire. And you all of a sudden you're like worried about what is my house going to burn down next? And behind the scenes, who knows? They're trying to negotiate a new contract um, for firemen or something, local firemen in your area. But that's all part of some kind of plan that that is being executed by these local news stations. That is way above anybody else's pay grade. We don't know, but that's what they do. If they're trying to create a narrative to increase funding for the police force, all of a sudden you'll start seeing more and more things about crime this, crime that, crime spiking here, crime spiking there. As long as I can remember, since I was a kid, and I've been paying attention to the news my whole life, it's always been crime. Always been crime. Always. In fact, when I was young, whoo boy, Times Square in Manhattan, New York City, was horrendous. There were people walking around selling drugs openly. There were prostitutes openly, with the fishnet stockings and all that, walking around. That's what that's what Times Square was. It was not kid friendly, although I was I was frequently around Times Square anyway. But now Times Square is like Disney. It's Disney. And New York City, as an extension, is also way, 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 way safer than it was back then. Is it 100% safe? Is there zero crime? No. There will never be zero crime. And that's the point. That's the point, right? If they're only showing you this much of the picture, right? And they focus on this much here, and all you can see in this is like crime, 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 crime. But then you pan out, you pull back, and you see that the crime that you're seeing here is not represented in the big picture. They never show you that. All they show you is this. And so I say all that to say that the poll results that we see is whatever they choose to show us, whatever picture they choose to paint. And I say that to let's talk about the New York goddamn Times. The New York Times has made it its mission to destroy Donald Trump. I mean, excuse me, not Donald Trump, to destroy President Biden. And they're going about it in pretty much the same way that they went after Hillary Clinton back in 2016. How do I know? Because I'm a news junkie. I'm a political news junkie, and I pay attention to shit like that. And all you see are like headlines after headline after headline, negative headlines on President Biden from the New York Times. And here's a post from Midas Touch. It says, "This is stunning. A New York Times journalist says the publication's chairman, A.G. Sulzberger, encourages that the organization cover the president negatively and highlight his age out of retribution for the fact that that Biden hasn't granted the Times an interview." Isn't that interesting? So, because President Biden has not made himself available to the likes of I don't know, a Maggie Haberman, who made it clear during the election interference trial that she was, she was the go-to person for Michael Cohen when he needed a fluff piece on Donald Trump. And the blowout quote from the article says, all these Biden people think that the problem is Peter Baker or whatever reporter they're mad at that day, one Times journalist said. It's AG. He's the one who is pissed that Biden hasn't done any interviews and quietly encourages all the tough reporting on his age. So that's what we get, because the New York Times is not some little, back of the woods, backwoods newspaper. It's the New York Times. So when they say something, people pay attention. This screenshot here shows a bunch of different things. It shows, if you look at the picture on the picture on the top is one of President Biden, but it's looking at his back. And the picture below is Donald Trump, and he's facing forward. And all of these articles, 7 in total, are negative articles about President Biden. And this was the New York Times going after Hillary Clinton. Disgraceful. So, so briefly, if let's say President Biden, let's say President Biden has a bad interview. I'm going to be knocking on wood that he doesn't, but let's say he has a bad interview tonight with George Stephanopoulos. Then what's next? Then the drum beat gets louder. The drum beat, the traitorous motherfuckers surrounding President Biden, they are not really his friend. Drum beat gets louder, and he acquiesces. He says, all right. And he decides to step out of the race. It wouldn't be unprecedented. It has happened before. And I see a lot of these, know-it-alls. They say, President Biden should do what Lyndon B. Johnson did. After one term, he announced that he was not going to run again. Oh, is that what happened? And so what happened? We won that election, didn't we? Since he did the right thing and stepped away? Oh, no, actually, President Richard Nixon won. So that's what happened, huh? Lyndon B. Johnson, who signed probably one of the most significant bills in all of American history, the Civil Rights Act, he stepped aside and the Democratic Party lost. So what kind of victory was that? Was good that he stepped aside, huh? That was good? You like that? President Biden should do what Lyndon B. Johnson did? Huh? Because that outcome was better? That he stepped aside so we can lose? Come on. Go with the guy that brought you to the game. God damn. But with that said, I would wholeheartedly, with all of my heart, support Kamala Harris, and only Kamala Harris as the presidential nominee. If President Biden said he's not taking it to the House, then it should be Kamala Harris. End of discussion. No, none of these. I'm hearing a lot of bullshit out there. People talking about, let's do a speed round of a speed primary. I don't need a circus. I don't need circus right now. I need some certainty. If it's not President Biden, then it's Kamala Harris. You fucking suck it up and take it. That's it. I don't believe any of your bullshit polls, because these poll results are basically whoever's paying for it they're getting the result that the payer wants. That's it. So tonight, at 8 p.m. on ABC is where you can find, or ABC, I think also Apple TV. And I had to look myself because I am planning on watching this. Uh, I'm not even sure if it's going to be the whole thing. I don't know if this is going to be the entire interview, but I'm intrigued by it. I have some thoughts about this. I wonder if President Biden couldn't have done it earlier. The fact that he's doing it just before the weekend is interesting because that, anytime something drops on a Friday, that gives people an entire weekend to discuss and to marinate on it. So I'll admit, I'll admit, I'm a little bit nervous. I feel like how I felt before his State of the Union address, and in fact, honestly, you guys know, we've been on this ride together for his whole presidency. Every time he's had to make a speech, I felt a little bit nervous because going back to even when he was President Obama's. Um, Vice president. He was known as a gaff machine. And forgive me, you guys, I totally had some clips that I wanted to share with you, and I think I am going to share them with you anyway. Let's see, from his speech earlier today in Wisconsin. Let me do this share screen. Let's do this.
I'm the sitting president of the United States of America in no small part because of you. That's not a joke. In 2020, you came through for me. I'm a nominee of the Democratic Party. I'm a nominee of this party because millions of Democrats like you just voted for me in primaries all across America. You voted for me to be your nominee. No one else. You, the votes. The voters did that. And despite that some folks don't seem to care who you voted for, well, guess what? They're trying to push me out of the race. Well, let me say this as clearly as I can. I'm staying in the race. I'll beat Donald Trump. I will beat him again in 2020. Well, by the way, we're going to do it again in 2024. I learned long ago, when you get knocked down, you get back up. And I'm not letting one 90-minute debate wipe out 3.5 years of work. As the governor said, I have led this nation from the depths of pandemic to the strongest economy in the world, and that's literally true. And I and you are not finished yet. I'm the sitting president. That's right. That is what he said was so good for a number of reasons. First of all, he talked about how it matters that you, the voters, selected him to be the nominee, not some fucking Democratic donors. I don't know if you guys heard this, right? There's a group of Democratic donors who want to pressure President Biden. They apparently uh, they've taken $100 million and put it off to the side because here's the deal, right? He is the nominee. Through our democratic process, through the primary, and people are like, oh, what primary? Yeah, there were people who ran against him. Dean Phillips ran against him. Marianne Williamson ran against him. Somebody else ran against him, I'm sure. And they didn't do well. They didn't do well. They averaged about 1 or 2 percentage points, throughout the whole primary. And people overwhelmingly voted for President Biden. And those votes matter. They matter. Um, and the other thing I like is that, when he said when he gets knocked down, he gets back up. And, above everything else, I think that is the key right now. Strangely enough, President Biden is the incumbent, right? He's the incumbent, but he's an underdog. I happen to love underdog stories. I always support the underdog, especially like if I'm watching a playoff game or a championship finals, whatever, and neither of them is a New York team, who do I root for? I root for the team that's not supposed to win, right? The underdog. And right now, President Biden somehow is in the underdog position. That's fine. I'll take it, because back in 2020, he was also the underdog. He was the guy I wasn't rooting for him. before he got the nomination, I wasn't rooting for him. I was rooting for Elizabeth Warren was the candidate I was rooting for. And there were other people. I think I might have even had Kamala Harris ranked ahead of Joe Biden, you know? Um, so, but there was something that he said back in South Carolina in 2020 that kind of echoed that sentiment of when you get knocked down, you get back up. It fucking really stirred something in me, uh, and that's where he is right now. It seems like everybody has got their knives out and they're shivving him, they're stabbing him in the back, and he's still standing and he's still moving forward. Yeah, give me some of that. Give me some of that. Until further notice, until he says otherwise, President Biden's my guy. Period. End of discussion. And I have not been paying attention to your comments, you guys, but let's see. We got Valerie G saying Joe is such a decent, caring man, a real gentleman. And something, Valerie, thank you for saying that. Um, that's not a small thing. It's not a small thing, and it's not an unimportant thing, especially when your opponent is, an adjudicated rapist. He's been found liable for sexual assault of E. Jean Carroll. Not only that, but his Trump Foundation has been shuttered for fraud. His Trump organization has been shuttered for fraud. Trump University has been shuttered for fraud. Fraud! Fraud. This is somebody that we, the American people, are supposed to trust to be our leader, but he's got his whole shit is littered with fraud. But behind that, he's what? He's a business genius? He's a business guru? No. He's been bankrupt 6 times. 6 times. And he started off, here's the thing, he started off with a loan of either was 10 million or 40 million. You know how many people, what percentage of people you and I know that get a loan for 10 or 40 million dollars? And I say loan for that much money? 0%. I don't know anybody who's gotten a loan for 10 or 40 million dollars and you can consider themselves struggling to accomplish something. Nobody's who gets a $40 million loan that they don't even have to pay back, let alone pay interest on. Nobody that gets that kind of head start is struggling. Okay. And he wasted it. He wasted it. Got a casino, 2 casinos that went bankrupt. Good at business? Good at business. He paid $130,000 to keep someone quiet, despite the fact that he insists he didn't have sex with her. You paid $130,000, did not have sex. Something's wrong with that picture. Something's very wrong with that picture, Mr. Good at Business. Um, no. Cindy C says Williamson smells blood in the water and has decided to re-enter the Rays. This is terrible. I hope that's not true. If it is true, it's ludicrous. It's ludicrous. Rust here says Trump only wants personal revenge, nothing else. It's predicted that he will only last 1 year. The Republican Congress will impeach him. They don't want him as a president. Then they can't control him. Easier said than done. First of all, we can't allow him to get into office. We cannot. We cannot. Everybody you know has got to come out and vote against Donald Trump and for President Biden. Yeah. So anyway, guys, I'm going to keep this short. I think I'm just about finished with what I was going to say. I believe there are going to be some excerpts shown of President Biden's interview. So if you guys want to catch that, I'm more than happy to call this a night. I appreciate you guys for hanging in there with me and letting me rant and rave about this election and about the failures of President Biden's team. I hope some of the folks on his team are watching, and you take note. Get your fucking head in the game, huh? Take your heads out of LinkedIn. Stop focusing on updating your resume. Get your head in the game and help us save democracy. How dare you? How dare you let President Biden go out there with too much goddamn orange makeup on his face? Literally, it's such a low bar. You're literally making him up to look like his opponent? I'm really pissed off about that. Among other things, keep all the sandbags away from his feet, all that bullshit. Come on now. It's a team game. Yeah. So, guys, let's keep our fingers and toes crossed for President Biden's interview. I feel like it happened already. It must have, right? Because if they're airing this thing at 8:00, they've already figured out where they're putting their commercial breaks, and we shall see what we shall see. So in any case, thank you for joining me for another episode of Storytime with BDD. I'm your host, BDD, aka Brooklyn Dad. Folks, we are going to get through this together. You and I. We're going to keep each other sane. We're going to support each other. We're going to support our president. We're going to support, and if we're not supporting him, we're supporting his predecessor, whoever that may be, and it better goddamn be Kamala Harris if it ain't him. So I look forward to seeing you all here, same time next week, same time, same place. I love you all. Peace.